At this time, I'd like to call our special meeting to order. I would like also to recognize the fact that Commissioner Marley will not be with us this evening, and it's due to his job responsibilities. He is very involved with emergency services, so he will be here, and he may come in late. At this time, I'd like to ask Commissioner Legg to lead us in our invocation. It will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd all please rise. And Commissioner Marley made it. We'll wait for you. Commissioner Belt, right there. He's got you right there.
Shall we pray? Father, we thank you for this beautiful day. We ask that you be with each and every one of us as we go through the business with the town of Hope Mills tonight. We ask that you want the board members and those in attendance to understand of everything that we have to do to keep this town running smoothly. We ask God that you take care of those who aren't able to be here tonight, that you let them understand that what we're doing is for their benefit. We ask you to watch over our military personnel around the world and our first responders, no matter what kind of uniform they are wearing. We'll never fail to give you the praise in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. At this time, do I have a motion to approve our agenda, which, of course, the agenda for this meeting is a discussion of the fiscal year 2021 budget. Do I have a motion, or is there anything you'd like to add?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the agenda for the budget meeting tonight.
Okay, I need to recognize Ms. Adams. Did you have something to add?
I just have one item. Mayor Pro Tem Dr. McCray had asked for an update timeline on the museum project, and after discussing it with her, we decided this was the appropriate place to do it. So if you would like to add that to your motion, and I have some information to hand out to you all.
Okay, so Commissioner Legg, would you add to your motion this additional item for discussion? And that would be the Trade Street Museum.
And Ms. Starling, you have a copy, correct? Yes. Okay.
I would like to also add to my motion the update regarding the Trade Street Museum.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. So at this time, we'll start our new business, which is a discussion of our budget. We have met previously on this, and we're bringing it back for information that I'll turn it over to Ms. Adams.
Yep. So at the previous budget workshop, the board voted that they would like to proceed with the additional, yes, thank you, Drew, with the additional funding for an additional code enforcement officer, a full-time position.
Thank you.
So we have adjusted some items in the current proposed budget, and that's what we emailed earlier, and Drew has just handed out to you all. This position will be funded beginning October 1, and that's simply two things. One, to make this budget work, and two, we have to have time, a little bit of time to get prepared to advertise and go through the hiring process.
Okay.
Are there any questions, concerns? I will say, and this kind of goes hand in hand with this, there has been, and this is another item that that Mayor Pro Tem Dr. McCray had asked about, the code enforcement ordinances. Currently, right now, we have staff working on strengthening them and adding penalties, coming up with some ideas of some ways that we can really recoup some of the expense that we incur when we have someone that is not compliant, especially with mowing grass and that kind of thing. So they have completed one amendment, one new, or I'm not sure it's an amendment, it may be a new ordinance, and Chancellor's not in here, but the code enforcement staff has sent that to Mr. McLaughlin. He is currently reviewing it. Once he's done reviewing it and made his changes, and he and I have had a chance to sit down and discuss it, we will forward that to the town attorney for review. And I'm hoping July 1 or shortly after, we'll be bringing that for board consideration. There is another piece to that. We're also looking into possibly partnering with a company that goes after people that are delinquent with their, if it's a, what's that company that,
It's a collection agency.
it's a collection agency. If we have fees and penalties that we've not been able to collect, we can partner with a collection agency. They will keep a portion, but sometimes it's worth it to have that, little bit of administrative, because they're responsible for all of the phone calls, the collection. We're looking at that. I haven't really gotten too far with that piece yet. There's also another piece where we can take our own liens out or go to civil court. So we're looking at that as well, amending our ordinance to allow us to be able to do that. So once we have all those changes, I'm hoping that we'll have a little bit more bite behind, the penalty, and it'll get a little better. And with having two people working code enforcement, I think it'll make a big difference. I really do. That's one of my biggest issues, is fielding phone calls, complaints, concerns. They come to me, I take them to code enforcement. But they're out there too.
Madam Mayor,
checking
ma'am.
them.
Yes, sir.
Miss Adams, will all that stuff come back to the board?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
any changes, any amendments, or any new ordinance, an amendment to an ordinance and any new ordinance would require board approval. And I'm not 100% sure, but one or two of them, a new ordinance may require public hearing as well. I'm not 100% sure when it comes to something like code enforcement. But we
Thank
will
you.
follow the proper protocol.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Melissa, are both positions going to work for Chancellor?
Yes, sir.
Effective,
It'll be July 1, but the
yeah. okay.
second full-time will not come on board until October 1 full-time.
Okay, so I think there was some discussion in our last meeting about certain days in inspections. Is it?
It's not going to be like that.
It's
It
not
won't
going to
be
be
like
like that.
that.
I
Mm-mm.
just
It'll be
wanted
two full positions.
two full positions.
One position July
Yeah.
1, two positions as of October 1st.
Okay.
Because we'll need 3 months, order furniture, get some different things situated, hire somebody for the other position.
Position up front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, we have had some discussions about, moving Chancellor over to that side and
Well,
putting.
there's a vacant
there's-
office and a storage.
There's a storage and a.
We could move
move
him
the
over
s-
here, make the
move
storage
the
office.
storage
and put the
over
storage
here.
in his old office.
Okay.
So
So
we'll
they'll be side by
figure,
side.
we will figure that
Yeah,
part
we'll take
out
care of
though, yeah.
Nope.
But
Yeah.
pretty much, most places that we have contacted, this is where code enforcement falls under,
Mhm.
is planning and zoning.
Yeah.
And not under inspections.
Mhm.
So why it was like this to begin with,
Yeah.
I really don't know, but it's been like that for a long time.
Mhm.
We're looking for a fresh start and, some, high energy in it. let me
Well,
say.
my main question
So-
was to make sure that or to ensure that they were just working for one boss and not two bosses.
Right,
And,
right.
and I think you've already answered it. They're going to be working for Chancellor.
Yep.
Yeah, that's all I
Yes,
have.
sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Let me explain this real quick.
Yep,
Okay,
So you
and
will
sorry,
find the
I just
figures.
realized after I looked at it, I did not label the columns. The first column that you have is the original recommended budget. The second column is now the recommended budget after we added the full-time code
position.
enforcement position beginning October 1st. The third column is the change between the two numbers. So the total budget did not change, revenues did not change. We did all of the expenditure side. And at the last budget workshop when we were discussing this, y'all did a consensus to add that position as full-time for the year. I've reduced travel and training in governing body, administration and finance. Planning, we had to bump up the salaries and benefits for that position to be in that department for the full year. We've adjusted some of those expenditures. Chancellor is good with those. And then some other departments have had some turnover, so that adjusted, since the original recommended budget, so that changed that. And then inspections, of course, the position that they're going to have is the salary will be lower than the person that's currently in that position. So there was some reductions there. So it netted out to be even. So really the total budget has not changed. Just these accounts
Mhm.
by those amounts is all that changed.
Okay. Anyone have any questions in reference to the changes that we requested that they were able to do without changing the final dollar amount?
Madam Mayor, I
Yes,
just
sir.
say if we can do all that and not change the numbers, that's good.
Mhm.
Thank
it's magic.
you.
It's magic.
Any other questions or any other concerns that we want to discuss this evening? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you for the update. I just wanted to make sure we weren't hired another person and writing citations and we didn't have an ordinance that
Correct.
was strong enough to actually enforce the citations that we were writing. So I
Correct.
appreciate
Yeah.
that. Thank you.
And actually, Mayor Pro Tem, it was back in December, maybe, I had gone to, the code enforcement staff and asked that they start looking at strengthening our ordinances, sort of in anticipation of making a few changes, so, thank you.
Madam Mayor, ma'am,
Yes, sir.
I think one reason these ordinances were as they presently are is because we we did business with a smaller amount of staff,
Right,
and some of that workload was passed on to someone else. And so the town just made it work with what we had to work with.
right,
And another thing is, we've grown so much since I came on this board about 17 years ago. It's grown tremendously, and it's still growing.
oh, yeah.
So by the time they get their feet on the floor, we'll have something for them to do.
Yeah,
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you.
Okay. Anyone else as far as the budget?
Okay, so if I may, Madam Mayor,
Okay.
I think Commissioner Bellflowers had some concerns and some questions regarding the construction management position, manager position. So now that is funded for, in this proposed budget for
January 1.
a half a year, so January 1. I sent an email earlier with the current and upcoming projects that Public Works has coming down the pike, and also the areas, the buildings and grounds, facilities that they are responsible for. And then in addition, we took two job descriptions from the city of Fayetteville. One is a project contract manager, the other is senior project manager. And both Bruce and Don feel like we can commingle these two job descriptions together to come up with something that will fit us. This person will also be cross-trained throughout all of Public Works. He will be a skilled person that is not riding around. I've heard, a few things about riding around in the truck and that kind of thing. This person will actually be responsible for overseeing these various projects, overseeing contracts. It will be a working position.
Hands-on.
Hands-on. Thank you. I was trying to find the right words. Thank you, Drew. So I don't know if there's any other concerns, questions. Don is prepared to answer any questions that anyone may have of him.
I guess, Melissa, I'm just trying to get to the scope. And I'm glad that you sent us a list of the current upcoming projects, and this is very informational for all of us. I mean, when you look at this long list, there's 14 of them.
Well, and the other thing that you have to remember is all of our subdivisions that are currently underway, when they're putting in their infrastructure, Public Works Department is responsible for overseeing that infrastructure to make sure it's to our standards.
I guess the main question I have, and probably Don will be able to answer it, is how is this individual going to impact the completion of 14 plus projects? That's kind of how, I guess that's the nutshell question. How is this individual going to impact the completion of all these projects? Especially, we've got an update here about the Trade Street Museum, which is an excellent. Maybe we could start with that one.
Actually, instead of doing that, I will pose this to you in an opposite way. Is how is not having this person impacting all of the things that we want to have done? Keep in mind that when y'all went through the Citizens Academy, we discussed all the stuff that we do in the sanitation department, buildings and grounds, street department, inspections department. Not once did we mention in the whole Citizens Academy anything about construction. And I would believe that probably just about everyone that's gone through there has made comment to the effect that I had no idea that you all were responsible for so much. That's why we have a project list right now that we're trying to work our way through and get things done, because in addition to these, we have our regular job to do. And we're responsible for the operation of this town. And we take that very seriously. We take all these projects very seriously as well. There's only Bruce and I are the only ones that have got the qualifications right now to do some of these things. And that's why we need that extra person, because we're still, and like y'all keep saying, the town is growing and the town is growing exponentially. My staff hasn't grown. So we still have the same amount of responsibility plus, and we're taking on the additional responsibility of trying to make sure that all of the construction projects that we have going on are built to a standard so that we can put the town of Hope Mills name on it and be proud of it, and not have to go back a few years later like we do, unfortunately, for some of our infrastructure and say this is quite literally garbage. We don't want that to happen. We want quality work in this town. And the only way to do it is to be able to have the staff that can actually oversee it and watch as things are implemented, and that's the shortcuts stop.
Don, I appreciate that. And make no mistake, I read your monthly reports that's included with our agenda packets, and they're very informational. And you guys are full. But is this person going to have a team of people dedicated to the completion of these projects?
No. This person is going to work hand in hand with Bruce and I.
Okay.
We will be the team. Another thing that it doesn't, we don't advertise the things that go on, but when we get a project, we do it cradle to grave, and we do it by ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a contracting office or a contracting officer that writes the RFPs for us. We do that. We write our own contracts. We do our own inspections. I mean, we do our own oversight, and we do our own closeout. We don't have separate offices that do that for us, and we do that in addition to our regular jobs.
Well, the reason I ask that is because I think we contracted out that lot beside the church for sod. I think we did. I think that's
For seating.
is that for sod or for seeding?
Seating,
Okay, and we're not doing that. Another contractor is going to do that.
right.
Okay.
Go ahead, say why.
Why? You pulled it out of me.
We have had, ever since the dam has been built in that corner for whatever reason, and I'm not smart enough agriculturally to explain it to everybody, but it's painfully obvious to see that we're having a problem getting any type of grass cover in that area. Contractors come in twice and done it and failed. We tried it last year with our buildings and ground folks, and they weren't successful either. So we went and asked another landscaping company. We did put out the RFP for it, that they come in, do all the soils testing, and had them responsible for doing all of the amendments that need to be done per sampling requirements, and then do the seeding, and then maintain it for the first 30 days so we get it established. For whatever reason, whether it be soils, this is probably what it really is the soils and the amendments that need to be done. There are certain skill sets that there's things that most of us can do, but every once in a while there's something that it takes a little bit special or a little extra knowledge to be able to accomplish something successfully. And like I said, the first 2 times contractors weren't able to do it. We tried it, and rather than keep making failed efforts at it, we're trying to come up with an avenue that we can actually make it work.
So this position is going to be more or less a hands-on position and not so much a supervisory or a management
We're all
position.
hands-on.
They're all
Okay.
hands-on.
We're
I
all
want to make
hands-on.
sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, from me, and I mean, y'all have seen me on my belly in the ice clearing out storm drains and digging ditches and stuff to,
Yeah.
to the last guy that gets hired that's out cleaning out the gutters and stuff on the street and painting stripes. We're all hands-on, and we all do what needs to be done to keep the town working.
And I think that's the misconception that
Yeah.
some people have, is that we have people that are in charge, but we're very fortunate in that our people that are in charge lead by example. In other words, you do what anyone else would be doing out there, and that gives us an extra set of hands. So personally, I appreciate that, and I understand the way we're growing and with our developments that we have right now. I also know the pressure you're under, because these developers and these people that are building and these everything that has to be done, they want it done now so they can move to the next step. And by having those additional eyes and ears and hands, what'll happen is you could be looking at more than one spot, and instead of trying to stretch yourself so thin. So I do think that for the staff we have, we've done an outstanding job, but with the way we're growing, I do personally see the need for additional help. And I do believe that they would be, by your example, they'd be hard workers because you'd require it.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I spoke with Don last week, I guess it was, maybe week before, and went over the same stuff with him, and he explained it in detail of why the guys we have now can't do everything. And the warranty stuff, when another company does the seeding or the sod, that we have something to fall back on. But, you know, there comes a time when maybe we have to look at the soil. I think that's what you said was,
Yeah.
Yes,
was
sir.
going on with the testing. And once we get that right, we'll be good to go. I hope. So, thank you for your explanation to me, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for your update, and, I appreciate what you do, and the update, when I asked for the update, I was not being punitive as you all are not doing anything. I think that we're a town that is, as you all say, are growing. You can't run a town with over 16,000 people like you ran it when you had 10. So I hear the complaint that we don't get projects done, but your area is public works and not building and construction. And so I very well see where this position and this help is needed so that you can get the help that you need to do an effective job, like you said. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Anyone? Any more
Just
discussion?
one follow-up, Mayor.
Yes.
Thanks, Don. This is a long list, and this is a short list, I'm sure, because there's other projects that's probably not even on this list.
Yes, sir.
And I know you're hands-on. I witnessed it yesterday when you were down at the lake. You helped two folks down there with straps. Really worked out well. So, yeah, this puts it in perspective. It truly, truly does. I mean, one or two people can't do it all, especially a list this long of projects that need attention. So, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Mayor Warner,
Yes, ma'am.
I have to say something to you, Tom, before you
Yes,
get out of
ma'am.
here. All I can say is finally, and I think this, I mean, everybody's nothing but kudos with you and Bruce, and they know you're overworked and that you're doing as much as you can, and they appreciate everything. And I know we all do too. So this is a long time coming. I mean, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Any other concerns?
I didn't know, did you want to address any of the items that you had sent earlier, or are you good with everything, from the emails? If not, we'll move on to the update on the Trade Street Museum. I don't know if there was anything.
I did have one question in there about the fee schedule with the food truck permit.
Yes, sir.
Remember, the question was at per event, and then you said yes, but you're looking at possibly increasing the amount in the fall. Yeah.
That $25 is per event, and that was done in an effort to get our food truck rodeos
Right.
kind of up and running. Of course, this year, you know, we've not been able to have one. But the idea was eventually to have one or two large food truck rodeos, either one in the spring, one in the fall. With that in mind, we talked about doing a larger fee in lieu of the $25. We're looking at somewhere between $125 and $150 per event, but that's for a town event.
That's based on
That's
what we
based
have
on
learned from other
Other
events that were
municipalities.
Same thing, what we're thinking about doing.
So Chancellor and I have to work through all of that, kind of figure out where we are and what we want to recommend, and we'll bring an amendment to the fee schedule
Ah,
at
there we go.
a future board meeting. So we're not going to be having any food truck rodeos in the near future. So what we're kind of looking at doing is possibly, dependent upon the restrictions that Governor Cooper has in place due to the COVID-19, we're kind of looking towards the fall and something maybe around Old Mill Day, or, you know, we're hopeful that that'll be what we do. So
okay. So there is going to be an adjustment.
we will.
Okay.
We'll bring that back to you. We haven't worked out all the details on that yet.
And I just skipped it during the last workshop. I had it in my notes,
That's fine.
but I just skipped bringing it up then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else, and we'll move on to the update on the Trade Street Museum. So I started out with, I could have gone back further, obviously, because this has been an ongoing project for a while. But I started with December, and moved through, and what I did was I took my, things that were discussed at regular meeting, things that were discussed in my manager's update, all the way to our budget retreat, and then on the March 16th regular meeting of this year, we had the site plan review, which was approved for the Trade Street Museum. And then the pandemic hit, so there we are. At the budget retreat, it was decided that we would put the funding in this project in the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. Now, I did send you all some expenses that are on this sheet that we spent this year on that project that were not budgeted for, but we've not had to have a budget amendment. We kind of took it from some other areas and
Yeah.
made some adjustments. So there has been some work. We are ready to, the next steps in this would be, where is my sheet on the next steps? Flip back, thank you. I'm having a problem here. Okay. The next step would be, of course, July 1, the new funding is available to proceed with the completion of the museum building to make it ADA compliant. Now, I will say, I've asked for the Historic Preservation Commission minutes from the last two meetings, and I've not received them because I wanted to have that, because that kind of outlined a little bit, and also they talked when we had our tour of the museum, there was some discussion with Don and Bruce that we would get the building ADA compliant, and then they would figure out how they wanted to proceed with the displays or period, or I think they had the kitchen area, they wanted to make it sort of a period piece, and then the rest of the interior, make that where they could switch out displays, add and remove items, and maybe have a few storyboards and that kind of thing. I did not get those minutes, so I don't have that, but in speaking with Don, he said that's pretty much what the discussion was. So once we put an RFP out, that process typically takes about 30 days. And we are looking to have all of the work done under a general contractor, so the parking lot piece and the interior piece done under one GC. Just make it a lot simpler. Following the bid opening, the recommended bid will be placed on the next agenda, the following agenda, for board consideration. And once that is approved by the Board of Commissioners, the notice to proceed will be issued and a contract signed. Then the construction process itself may take up to approximately 60 days to complete. Are there any questions about the timeline that I have given to you, starting with December to now?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
is there gonna be workers walking over top of each other that may slow down the project, although it's the same company?
A general contractor typically schedules
By steps,
his people so that they're not interfering with one another. And then we'll have Don and Bruce to oversee the project too, so.
Thank you.
Is that what you were asking? I'm not-
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
sorry.
That's the way it's supposed to work.
Right.
We hope that it does.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
The next step is just to put in the ADA parking. Is that it?
No, we have to make the interior ADA compliant as well.
That's it, okay. So
Yeah, we've
there's two
got to-
projects.
We've got to make I think there's a sheet on the back that I added. I'm sorry, I skipped that. So we would move the bathroom wall and the associated utilities, change the interior doors to ADA compliant measures, install ADA compliant hardware, and then the parking is separate. But again, we want to have that done under one GC so
Okay.
that it's a smoother process.
Okay.
And this
Well-
is what's
And
in the
2021
2021
budget, yes.
recommended budget.
This is what was in your proposed fiscal
Yeah.
year budget coming up.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I do have a question, and I've talked to Melissa about this privately as well, putting this type of money into the museum. Here lies the issue that I think we're still going to have with our commission now, so I think about two people now. Who is going to take care of the day-to-day, duties of this museum, or is this gonna be something else that's pushed back on another staff member that already has other jobs to do? But, you know, we're putting this money into this museum, but when it comes to like changing out the different artifacts and, you know, having rotating exhibits and things like that, it takes time, and even if you do get the commission back up to the number of people we needed, I just don't know if the volunteers would be able to put in that much time to run the museum the way that it should be ran. But,
Right.
I mean, that's nothing that we have to settle today, but that is a issue that I
It's a
have
concern, yes.
ongoing.
And it has been a little bit of a concern for me from the inception of this idea of the museum. My understanding, and correct me, Madam Mayor, if I'm wrong, but my understanding, and of course now we're speaking about a previous historic commission, but my understanding was that they would be responsible for scheduling when it was open, and what it was going to appear like inside.
And the display.
And the displays,
Mhm.
yes.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
we do not have staff that can work there to keep it open, and that has been understood all along. Now, I will say that if it's something where they need something moved, or, you know, they need the assistance of Public Works, where they have to help them, you know, bring something in, take something out, that's a scheduling thing, and I don't have any issues with that at all, provided that Public Works, you know, and I feel like they're very cooperative if it, you know, if it comes to, well, we need them to pick up a box and move it, you know, that kind of thing, that's not a big deal. But as far as the day-to-day operations and keeping it open and actually being responsible for setting up displays and that kind of thing, we can only assist with that. And we certainly don't have the personnel to run it every day. And my idea of, or my understanding was that it wasn't gonna be open necessarily every day. It was gonna be, you know, open for schools to come and tour, possibly weekends, of course, special events, that kind of thing. But it wasn't something that was gonna be an 8 to 5 Monday through Friday thing.
Yeah, it's going to be volunteers that
With
would be,
volunteers.
yeah, people that would know the history of Hope Mills that could be there and more or less give mini tours of the artifacts were in there. I think the frustration has been that locating some of those artifacts that we supposedly had that we can't necessarily put our hands on. I think that's been a frustration because there were lots of things that were brought to old mill days for the mill reunions, and those items haven't been made available. So that was one thing, and I think the other thing was the change of people over time. The leadership didn't make those decisions about exactly what they wanted it to look like. We did visit, though, with the previous town manager, we did visit some locations to see what other museums look like, and had some very good ideas, and most of them maybe ran 3 days a week, and then they had the people that ran it were volunteers, and so it worked out. It was very nice. When we went, when Mr. Holland and I was at our meeting, we visited a couple of places that had those types of volunteers. The church we went
They
to,
were volunteers.
they were volunteers, so that it was people that had a lot of information about the town and the church where we were. So that's why I believe you probably will find that once we can ever get it open, there'll be interest to be in there. It's just that the interest has dwindled now because it's taken so long to be a reality. So, and I think the positions on the historical commission, we're going to have to do a very good job of making sure they're people that are going to be with us through this whole process. And it probably would be a good idea for it to be people that know a lot about Hope Mills. I mean, we've got people around that have been here their entire lifetime, and it would be wonderful if we could get them to get on board this historical commission.
I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but I know that there has been some discussion, and a few of you have asked me about the possibility of making the commission a committee
Mm-hmm.
again, and having all the certificates of appropriateness go through Mr. McLaughlin. So I don't know if that's something that, if there's any interest in that, or it might make it easier.
I think that would be wonderful
To get
because,
volunteers
yeah,
to
it's
come in.
overwhelming for somebody to, and I think that's what happened to the other one. Once they realized what a commission really had to do, they weren't willing to make those decisions, those tough decisions about telling property owners what they would have to do if they made changes to the buildings or coming up with standards. So I think that would probably help a lot if it were a committee, and then if that committee could function as they had been doing prior to this push for a commission, because they were getting a whole lot more done when they were just not having to deal with the extensive paperwork and all the trying to come up with rules and regulations. So I don't know. Yes, sir.
That's really good, because that was a segue into a comment that I was about to make, is that, we're going to need a certificate from the commission for the restrooms at the chapel.
Yeah,
So, I mean, how the heck are you going to fulfill that if you don't have a commission?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to stop something that's very much needed at the chapel.
Yeah.
So we've got to fix it. It's either keep it a commission and fill it as a commission, or dissolve it.
Well, and I think the requirements of who should be on that commission, if we follow those guidelines, we haven't had anybody qualified to be on it. I mean, that's sad to say, but if you look at what a commission truly has, you try to have an architect, you try to have an engineer in some cases. There's all these. So I think if personally, if we made it, referred it, changed it back to a committee, and then ask any of those things that we need to have done go through planning.
Yeah.
Don't you? I mean, let Mr. McLaughlin then take over the role of those types of things.
He's gonna
Approvals.
have to.
He can do the certificates of
Yeah, he's
appropriateness.
going to have to,
Yeah.
because I mean we fully funded all of the necessary repairs in the next year's budget to include the bathrooms.
Yep.
So, and that's going to be, and if we don't address this up front, that's going to be another project, Mayor Pro Tem, that's just going to add to the 14 that we already have.
Could we?
I can get with our town attorney
Okay.
and with Mr. McLaughlin, and within the next, I'm not sure how quickly, but within the next few meetings, I feel like we could bring something back to you all to look at.
Okay. Could as we move to try to encourage people to come on board, could we make it a point of letting them know that we're
Looking at
changing it back to a committee so that this,
Can you
Took the words
do
out of
that?
my mouth.
yeah, because I think that if you took that requirement off, we might get somebody.
Might get somebody.
Yeah, because
Exactly.
right now I think that's been
Several applications that have come.
good.
Okay.
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 All righty, so that will be. So any other information you need about them?
No, I was gonna ask
Thank you.
if there were any applications that had come in, and again, my concern was, let's build it, let's get it up.
Yeah.
We don't have a clear vision So
Yeah.
just, that was just the concern,
Yeah.
the big concern
Mhm.
that I had.
Okay.
I've
Thank you.
extended the deadline to this Friday since we had a couple more openings from when I originally started
Mm-hmm.
advertising. If you know anyone,
Yeah, because there's 3 vacancies right now, is that not
that's
correct?
there's 3 vacancies there. There's one on appearance and there's one on the Board of Adjustment. So if you have any friends or neighbors who
Mhm.
are interested, please encourage them to.
Yeah. And that Board of Adjustment position is one that is not as time, it doesn't require as much time.
Right.
So that would be a position that there might be somebody willing to take it, because it doesn't meet on a monthly basis. Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I think with the recent resignations, I don't believe the commission has enough members to even to have a quorum. Is that correct?
I don't know,
There's 7,
There's
so
7,
four
and-
would be,
they would have to, all the remaining members would have to attend.
There's 4 left?
There's 4 left.
4
left.
So 4 would make a quorum. It has to be a majority.
Yeah,
Here.
okay.
So they would be able to meet.
Okay.
But I think if, to encourage more members and probably to let those members know that we're wanting to make this change. Okay.
Was this a committee at one time?
It's always was, it was a
was a
committee
committee.
until they wanted to become a commission because they
Okay.
wanted to improve the historical district, and this is how they could go about doing it. But we did the legwork, the paperwork, and then it is overwhelming. I went to several of the meetings and was involved in the front end of it, and the more we got into it, it became a more of a in charge kind of committee that could make decisions. They could actually, if you go by some of the readings, they could make decisions and it wouldn't be a board choice. It was a decision that they made as a commission because they were very powerful. But that, again, a regular citizen doesn't want to take that responsibility. And that was one of the most recent questions was, are we going to have to enforce this? And really the commission is supposed to be the enforcing officer of it. And that's kind of like I said, if you don't have those people that have those experience, it's hard for you to tell somebody about the architecture and the engineering piece if you're not an expert on that. And that's really what they need to be
Okay.
involved. Okay, so that will be just something that can be, we don't have to make a decision on it. You can just bring it back to us.
All right.
And
Okay.
then and the last piece is I did include, the discussion at our budget retreat concerning the chapel.
Yeah.
So, and so that will be a priority next, budget, getting that weatherization completed on the church,
Mhm.
on the chapel.
Ma'am,
Yes, sir?
am I correct if I say the chapel's dry now? It's protected from the weather?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got it. Relatively, yeah. We still have weatherization around the windows. What else, Don? The door? No, we were gonna redo the door to make it more period piece, weren't we?
I guess what I was asking, Miss Adams and Don, is it temperature controlled in there now?
It is temperature controlled, fully climate controlled. The last step that we need to do for actual weatherization is do the wood repair around the windows. And then once that's done, the eaves and soffits and the gables are repaired and repainted, then it'll be fully weatherized. The front doors are fine. We would like to, in time, go back and remake front doors using the templates from the original ones and make them as original, close to original as we possibly can. But for right now, we're not getting any water in the building. It is climate controlled. We do want to finish the woodwork around the windows so that we have that completed.
Yeah, I think climate control was a big problem we had over there by not having it controlled. The weather changed from season to season. Took its toll on that building.
It did. Well, and having the holes in the roof and not being able to keep the weather out,
Well, we had
you
to
know,
let
the climate
birds in
control would have been
somewhere.
very difficult.
Had to let the birds in. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Is there any other issues, concerns? We good with our budget?
Oh, yeah. Thank you for explaining the Parks and Rec position. Yeah, thank you very much for explaining. 'Cause I was kind of confused because I was going right off of what Lamarco
Right,
had packaged up, and
We found a better way to
yeah.
do it.
Yep,
it was like, are we doing
There's
away
always
with the
a-
secretary
And the
position?
department heads give us their request, and then when we have to balance it, sometimes there's better ways to do it, but we give you what we look at, so your book.
Yeah, it's in that
is
book.
that me and Melissa have.
Yeah.
But, you know, when we change stuff, sometimes it's hard to see that we didn't do it the exact way they asked for, but it is in there.
we
Yeah.
did it a better way.
Yeah.
Well, the
Very good.
explanation was a heck of a lot better because
Yeah.
it was really
It was a
confusing.
little confusing.
Don't make it hard.
Yeah, and was like, wait a minute, is it me? No, I gotta make sure I get all my questions in here. So, and so I appreciate the explanation, and hopefully the board did too.
All right, is that, we need to do any more? Anything,
That's up to the board.
anything?
We've got our public hearing at 7:00.
Okay,
For the proposed budget, and it is up to the board's discretion. You may or may not approve it or adopt it, but unless you have any other concerns or questions or comments.
Madam Mayor,
yes, sir.
if it's possible, I would like to see the gentleman sitting at the back of the room have the opportunity to address the board if they have any concerns or needs before the budget is passed is not covered in this book. Did I explain that well enough?
You did. And I don't think they do.
They're not paying.
They're
They're not paying attention.
for once, so they just got called out, but.
I tell you, as part of the budget process, though, before we finalize this and give it to y'all, after me and Melissa are finished with the second or third round of adjustments, we give it back to the department heads, and I tell them, you know, if there's anything that you can't live with that's in this budget, you need to let me know. Or if you need to shift things within,
Yeah.
the line items without changing the bottom line, you can do that. And so they do give me a couple of changes and say, you know, I would rather switch this with that, and it doesn't change the bottom line, or if there's something they absolutely have to have, then they let me know, and then I go back to Melissa and say, we need to figure out how to do this, and find a way to put it back in. They do get a second opportunity.
May I ask them if they have anything?
Sure. Commissioner Legg would like the gentleman at the back,
Chief Hodges,
Chief Hodges.
is there anything that you need that's not covered in this budget besides the new building?
Guess we're gonna need about 20 people.
Don't open this up, Jerry.
And the public works said they were willing to give up their budget for this year.
Oh, wait a minute. He walked in just at the right time.
No, sir, we're fine. We're satisfied with the budget. I appreciate it.
Don, is there anything?
We're fine, thank you.
Police Chief, sir, is there anything that you may need that's not covered in this budget? Realistically.
No, we're good. We have some additional stuff from the meeting yesterday that we're gonna be submitting, but that has nothing to do with this current.
All right, thank you. Thank you guys for everything that you guys do.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Drew, this is my third rodeo on this budget, and I want you to know that I learned some more new stuff about it. It was very informative, and each one now is being the third one. I'm starting to really see the flow and how everything is put together, and I just wanted to thank you for that and all the answers on the
Thank you.
Yeah.
that I've sent you.
Yeah. And you don't learn or unless you ask the question, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think most of y'all too have been
Have been-
through the, and if at the end of the finance presentation, I give you a sample budget to work
Mhm.
with. And most of the academies, the ones y'all been at and others,
They say that's the
pretty much everybody
hardest
said,
thing they've ever
how
had to
in
do.
the
How do you do
world
it?
do you even figure this stuff out? It's a chore, but it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's what we do.
You know,
And
back,
have it next year.
Yep.
it's a lot more simplified now than it was when I first came on. Mr. Warner's father-in-law used to take me under his wing, and I'd go over to the store. He said, "Come on, let's sit down and study this." So I had a good teacher, but things are so much simpler today
Yeah.
than they were then. And I think the needs of the town has gotten more complex on stuff we have to survive. I mean, you know, you got a building here. Look what we did to this building this year. Look what we're getting ready to do to police and fire stations.
Yeah.
Parks and Rec, the way they're growing. We're just growing by leaps and bounds, and I saw 7 new foundations going in my neighborhood today. So it's not slowing down.
Yeah.
Plus all the ones on Legion Road going up.
Yeah.
So maybe someday we'll have enough tax dollars. We won't have to worry about stuff. So
It'd be nice, won't it?
thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. If there's not anything more, then do we have a motion to adjourn this special meeting, and then we'll be back for our regular meeting at 7?
Madam Mayor, I
Yes.
just have one more question.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Are we still okay with the budget shortfall still in the COVID-19? I know you said before that probably we would balance out by not, there's some things that we were gonna do that we weren't gonna do.
Right.
I just want to make sure that was still the case.
The current year, the biggest thing that's affecting our budget, because most of the property taxes are already in for the current year, is sales tax. But we budget conservatively, and the last one, I get one every 15th of the month, and they stay essentially 2 months behind. So on June 15th, we will get the April sales tax. That's the one that I'm more concerned about, because it was the entire month of April that we were under the stay-at-home. March was half the month. The sales tax we got in March was within $5,000 of last year's sales tax for March. So it really didn't affect our numbers that much. April may come in a lot lower. I'm anticipating about 18% just based on what I've seen. May, things started to open back up halfway through the month, so maybe that would rebound some, and depending what goes on in June, I think if people can't go out more, it could be a little bit of an explosion of just people able to do it. They're just going out because they can, spending money. And it's not just Hope Mills, it's county-wide. So anything that's bought and sold in Cumberland County, we just get our percentage of that. So, but I'm tracking it.
Yeah.
But next year's number that's in this budget is also based on a normal set of circumstances. So if we do see that the trend is lower going into next year, we take that into consideration, cut back. But do know that next year's numbers are still conservative based on everything.
Right. And the last report that I got from when I was in one of those county meetings was that we probably will see the benefit of the sales tax that we're not getting each month later on, because they have allowed businesses to postpone payments. So in other words, the sales tax that you would normally pay for this quarter or for this month, I might not have to pay that until July or August. So there'll be a catch-up period, and what will happen is it might see that catch-up fall into January and February. So it was a better forecast for us, except it doesn't help you in planning because
But
you
then
don't,
hurricane.
yeah.
But then I'll also have to see if there's any guidance where if it's deferred sales tax like that going into next year, do I have to put that back into this year since that's
Right, I think it's going to be
I don't
some,
know that
yeah.
yet, but I'm sure I'll get an email at some point saying, oh, by the way, we've updated
Yeah.
how this has to be calculated, or when you have to count it as revenue, and I'll keep on top of
Okay.
Do we have any idea of how our local businesses have fared throughout this pandemic and Hope Mills? Do you all know if we've lost any businesses permanently because of this pandemic? I mean, I don't know if you know, I'm just asking.
Mr. McLaughlin would probably be the person to really answer that, but I'm not personally aware of anybody that has closed up and said,
I haven't heard either.
I can't reopen.
I haven't heard.
Now, that's
That's
not
not
to
good.
say that it hasn't hurt them.
I haven't heard any specific. I had a staff member that has been at the, what's the shop center where the theater is?
Oh.
The
Millstones.
Yeah, Millstone.
That he was going to Rodino's and noticed some of the other shops looked empty that did have something in it, but I don't know if that's just because.
There's always a lot of turnover in that
Yeah,
shopping
they cleared
center,
out
but-
inventory while it was vacant and they'll come back, you know.
Yeah,
We
Thank
probably
you.
won't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
All righty.
Madam Mayor, I'll
Anything?
make
Yes,
a
sir.
motion, we adjourn this meeting.
Have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed, we'll get back at 7.